ever sit beside a guy who's staring at his phone, trying to make sense of why she doesn't seem to care anymore? He's doing everything. Texting first, apologizing for things he didn't even do, explaining himself like he's on trial. And you can just feel it, the self-respect leaking out of him with every unanswered message. Hey, brother, let's talk about that feeling. Because here's the truth most men never hear. When a woman stops valuing you, it's not the end of your worth. It's the beginning of your awakening. See, a lot of men confuse attention with affection. They think if she's not responding, they have to do more. But in reality, the more you chase someone who doesn't value you, the more invisible you become. That's not psychology, that's human nature. When something or someone is always available, the mind stops seeing its worth. And that's exactly where most men lose their power. They argue, they explain, they beg for clarity. But here's the controversial truth. A woman who doesn't value you isn't hurt by your words. She's hurt by your absence. She's not shaken by your emotions. She's shaken by your peace. This video isn't about revenge or manipulation. It's about self-control. The kind that makes you magnetic without even trying. Because when you stop performing for someone's attention, you shift from being a chaser to being a choice. And psychologically speaking, humans crave what they can't fully predict. When you stop over-explaining, stop reacting, and stop giving your energy away freely, she starts noticing the silence more than your presence ever did. So today, we're diving into 5 powerful truths. Things that hurt a woman more than arguments, explanations, or begging ever could, especially when she no longer values you. These aren't about playing games. They're about rediscovering your calm, your focus, and your sense of self-worth. Because at the end of the day, the real lesson is simple. When you learn to walk away with peace, you stop being someone she owns and become someone she remembers. 1. When your silence speaks louder than her words. You know what most men don't realize? Silence, real, intentional silence, is one of the most powerful things you can ever give someone who stopped valuing you. I'm not talking about childish ignoring or cold shoulder games. I'm talking about the kind of silence that comes from emotional self-respect. The kind that says, I don't owe you an argument to prove my worth. See, when a woman no longer values you, she expects a reaction. She expects you to chase. She expects you to explain yourself endlessly. She expects drama, because drama means attention, and attention means power. But when you stay calm, when you withdraw your energy without bitterness, you break the pattern, you confuse her, you remove her control over your emotions. And here's the psychological truth behind that. The human brain is wired to pay more attention to what disappears than to what stays constant. That's why silence feels so loud. It forces the other person to fill in the blanks. She starts replaying moments, rereading messages, wondering, why isn't he fighting anymore? Why does he sound so peaceful? It's that uncertainty that hurts the most, because when you stop arguing, you stop feeding her emotional need to feel significant through your reaction. Silence becomes your boundary. It says, I'm done being available for confusion, and I know what you're thinking. But won't she just move on if I stay silent? Maybe. But here's the hard truth. If silence makes her leave, your noise was never going to make her stay. Silence doesn't push away the right person. It only reveals who was truly interested in peace versus attention. There's also a deeper layer here. Your silence isn't just about her, it's about you. It's the space where you start hearing your own thoughts again. The space where you remember who you were before you started explaining yourself to someone who didn't care to understand. It's in that quiet where your dignity starts to grow back. Men who master silence don't need validation. They project self-assurance. They communicate through presence, not pressure. They stop fighting to be seen and start focusing on being grounded. And ironically, that's when people begin to notice them more. Because nothing unsettles someone who undervalued you like seeing you comfortable in your distance. She expects guilt, you give her calm. She expects anger, you give her peace. She expects weakness, you give her stillness. It's that shift that hurts more than any argument ever could. So, what's the real message here? Silence isn't punishment, it's power. It's emotional maturity in motion. When you stop explaining yourself to someone who no longer listens, you're not giving up, you're growing up. The next time she tests your patience, don't try to win the conversation. Win your composure, because the moment you stop defending your worth, she's forced to confront the silence of her own actions. And that's the beauty of it. Your peace becomes the loudest thing she's ever heard. 2. When you stop explaining yourself. Let me ask you something, brother. When was the last time you caught yourself over-explaining to someone who'd already made up their mind about you? You know that feeling when you're typing a long message, trying to justify your tone, your silence, or your choices. And deep down, you know it doesn't matter. That's the emotional exhaustion that comes from seeking understanding in a place that has no intention of giving it. Here's the truth. You don't owe explanations to someone who stopped listening. See, when a woman doesn't value you anymore, she's not trying to understand you. She's trying to maintain control. Every explanation you give becomes another thread she can pull to keep you emotionally tied. It's subtle, but it's real. And when you keep explaining yourself, you're saying, your opinion of me matters more than my peace. That's why the moment you stop explaining yourself, everything changes. Because silence may confuse her, but your calm certainty, that's what truly disturbs her. Psychologically, it's called cognitive dissonance. When someone expects your reaction and doesn't get it, their brain struggles to make sense of it. The mind starts building stories to fill the gap. Has he changed? Is he talking to someone else? Why isn't he reacting? That confusion often hits deeper than any argument could. Now, let's flip the perspective. When you stop explaining yourself, you're not being cold, you're being clear. You're saying, my actions will speak, and you can interpret them however you want. That kind of quiet strength makes people rethink how they treated you. Because while you were busy trying to be understood, they got comfortable misunderstanding you. Here's the part most men miss. Explanations often come from guilt, not love. We explain because we want peace. We explain because we fear being misunderstood. But what if I told you that your peace starts when you stop begging for someone's understanding? Because the right people don't need a PowerPoint presentation to see your intention. And this is where it becomes powerful. When you stop explaining, you start conserving energy. You stop defending your name in conversations you were never meant to win. You stop arguing with emotions disguised as logic. You stop bleeding effort where it's not appreciated. You become selective, focused, steady. And here's the irony. That's when you start becoming more attractive, not because you're playing games, but because confidence is rare. When you can calmly say, believe what you want and walk away, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability commands attention. So what hurts a woman more than anything when she no longer values you? It's not your distance. It's your detachment. It's realizing that the version of you who once over-explained, over-apologized, and over-tried has finally disappeared. That's what stings. The realization that your peace no longer depends on her perception. So the next time you catch yourself typing that long message, stop and ask, am I trying to create understanding or am I trying to avoid rejection? Because once you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving people the power to rewrite your story. And that's when you finally become the man who doesn't need to be understood, just respected. 3. When you become the man. she can't emotionally control. There's a moment, subtle but powerful, when a man stops reacting the way he used to. The moment when her mood swings don't shake him, when her silence doesn't trigger him, and when her attention no longer defines his day. That's the moment she realizes something changed, and not just a little, completely. See, emotional control isn't about coldness. It's about clarity. It's about knowing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. When you become the man she can't emotionally control, you're not being distant. You're being disciplined. You're no longer running on impulse. You're no longer chasing emotional highs or lows. You've learned that not every invitation to chaos deserves an RSVP, and that's where everything starts to shift. Because when a woman no longer values you, her subconscious often tests you, not out of cruelty but curiosity. She wants to see if she still has access to your emotions. Can she still make you mad? Can she still make you beg? Can she still make you feel small? But when your reactions stop coming, when you choose composure over conflict, she loses that access. And here's the truth. Losing emotional control over a man hurts more than losing the man himself. Because for a long time, she felt powerful, knowing that one word, one look, one message could change your entire mood. That emotional control gave her certainty, and certainty feels safe. But when you stop giving her that control, you take back your peace. This isn't about dominance. It's about self-mastery. You stop arguing, not because you don't care, but because you've realized that peace is more expensive than pride. You stop explaining, not because you're arrogant, but because you understand that your emotions are no longer up for negotiation. And that's when things get confusing for her. Because she'll expect you to react. She'll expect you to chase. She'll expect you to crumble the way you used to. But instead, you just breathe. Calmly, quietly, firmly. There's power in being steady when someone else is chaotic. There's power in smiling when you could have shouted. There's power in choosing peace when drama is calling your name. And here's the final truth. When a woman can't control your emotions, she's forced to confront her own. That's where her reflection begins. That's when the reality sets in. The game is over, and the man she once dismissed has become something she can no longer manipulate. That's not revenge, that's growth. 4. When you choose purpose over her approval, 500 words. Let's be honest for a second. Too many men lose themselves trying to be everything to a woman who's already stopped seeing their value. They shift their goals, their boundaries, even their identity, all to fit into a version of themselves they think she'll finally appreciate. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you trade your purpose for approval, the less attractive you become. Because a man without direction isn't mysterious. He's lost. See, your purpose isn't just your career or your ambition. It's your emotional center. It's what gives your presence gravity. When you start prioritizing her opinion over your mission, you stop leading your life. You start following hers. And no matter how much she says she wants that, deep down, she doesn't. Because respect dies where dependency begins. Let's face it, too many men think validation equals love. They chase compliments instead of progress. They post instead of practice. They think being needed means being valued. But that's the trap. You become a mirror, not a man. You reflect what she wants instead of becoming who you were meant to be. And here's the twist. The moment you pull back from that, the moment you say, I have things to build, goals to chase, a mind to sharpen, that's when everything changes. Because purpose makes you unpredictable again. It reminds her, and more importantly, you, that your life doesn't orbit around anyone's approval. Psychologically, humans are drawn to people who have direction. Purpose creates certainty, and certainty creates attraction. When you stop explaining why you're busy, why you're focused, or why you're no longer available for endless emotional confusion, something powerful happens. she starts paying attention again. Not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. But here's the criticism. Most men wait until they've been broken down to discover their worth. They wait until they're ignored, ghosted, or replaced to start working on themselves. Why? Why do you have to lose something to find your backbone? You shouldn't need rejection to wake up. You shouldn't need pain to start building your purpose. If you're listening to this right now, understand this. When you choose your growth over her approval, you shift from being replaceable to being unforgettable. You stop moving in emotional reaction and start moving with internal direction. And that's the difference between a man she tolerates and a man she respects. Your purpose will never betray you. It doesn't play games. It doesn't ghost you. It doesn't question your worth. It rewards you quietly, steadily, and with time. It makes everyone who doubted you remember why they shouldn't have. So stop living for her validation and start living for your vision. Because once your life becomes bigger than her attention, her opinion stops being the measure of your worth. 5. When you move on, without bitterness. There's something quietly powerful about a man who walks away, not angry, not resentful, just done. No arguments, no public speeches, no need to prove anything, just peace. Because when you move on without bitterness, you do something most people can't. You rise without noise. See, bitterness keeps you chained to the story. You replay every word, every mistake, every what if. You tell yourself that moving on means she gets away with it. That letting go means you've lost. But that's the lie your pain tells you. Moving on isn't losing. It's leveling up. Psychologically, resentment is the mind's way of staying connected to something that once gave you meaning, but what it really does is drain your emotional energy. It's like holding a burning coal, hoping the other person feels the heat. You end up carrying the damage alone. When you move on without bitterness, you send a silent message, not to her, but to yourself. I choose peace over proof. You stop needing closure. You stop needing to be right. You stop rehearsing the conversation that never happened. And that's when the healing truly begins. What hurts a woman more than anything is not your anger. It's your peace. Because anger still means she matters enough to make you react. But peace? Peace means you've outgrown the chaos. You're not avoiding her. You're just done performing for attention that never matched your effort. And here's the beauty of it. Your peace doesn't just heal you, it transforms you. You become more focused, more self-aware, more selective with your energy. You stop begging for love and start building a life that reflects it. You don't chase closure anymore, you create it. Let's be real. Most men think closure is a conversation. It's not. Closure is the day you stop checking your phone. It's the moment you realize your worth didn't leave with her. It's when you look back and finally say, "Thank you for teaching me what I'll never accept again." And that's where true strength lies, not in the silence that punishes, but in the peace that protects. When you move on without bitterness, you stop being a memory she can control and become a story she has to respect. Because people always remember the ones who left with grace, not noise. So keep your peace sacred. Let your calm be your comeback. Because the loudest revenge is living so well that even silence speaks your success. Here's the truth most men don't want to admit. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a woman who didn't value you is to let her feel your absence without your bitterness. Because nothing humbles the heart like realizing the man you took for granted didn't become hateful. He became happier. That's the twist nobody expects. She'll scroll through your silence, watch your growth, and wonder how the same man she dismissed learned to glow without her validation. And that's the controversial truth. Peace is the most painful consequence you can ever give someone who thought you'd never heal. If this message hit home, I want you to drop a comment below. Tell me your story, how you handled walking away. how you found peace again, or even how hard it was to rebuild. I read every single one because your journey matters. You're not alone in this. And remember, the man who stops begging to be valued becomes the man who starts being respected. So keep your peace, protect your purpose, and let your calm be the loudest thing they ever hear about you.